Hi guys, welcome back. Today I want to show you how I am putting together these little wooden beds. Well, they look like wooden beds, but they're actually made out of cardboard. This one is made out of foam board, and this one is made out of regular cardboard. And they feel just like wood. So I want to show you how I'm doing that. Just simple little beds. There's nothing fancy about these at all. And if you want to see how I put them together, then stay tuned. So each bed frame is made out of cardboard or foam board, whichever one you prefer, 2 popsicle sticks, some wood filler, and some tacky glue. Just your regular white tacky glue. Right? You're also going to need some sandpaper and some paint, of course. Whatever colors you choose, it's up to you. Age look to all of my beds. If you wanted to do the same sort of thing, then you'll need a dark brown, and what I used was a burnt umber. And the base coat will be a dark brown, and then whatever top coat that you choose. If you do want to do a crackle look, I used a crackle medium. If you've been around and following me for a while, you'll know that most of everything I make is kind of wonky. I don't have any straight lines. I find charm in wonky things. All I cared about this bed was as long as if I set it down on something flat, like a flat surface, it didn't wobble. Okay, so what I did to get the headboard and the footboard started was I just eyed up a shape on a piece of cardboard and I cut it out. And then I used that piece that I cut out as a template to cut out the next pieces, because depending on what you're using, you're going to cut 2 or 3 pieces for each headboard and each footboard. So this was foam board, and you can see I've cut 2 pieces and glued them together. Okay, and so foam board, I found 2 pieces was the perfect width. This is a McDonald's coffee box, and it's pretty thin. So for this one I used 3 pieces. So each piece, once I finished assembling them, had 3 pieces cut and glued together. I found with this regular cardboard that 2 pieces was thick enough, because if you do 3, and I've done 3 here just to show you, here's 3, that's a bit thick. This is 2 pieces here. See how much thicker that would be? So it's up to you how you do it. So you need a headboard, a footboard, and a bedboard. So like I said, I cut out a headboard and a footboard, and I'm going to use these as templates. And I will measure them in a second here for you. So just put them on there and trace around them. I haven't done my bedboard yet because I am going to use a ruler for that. That's just a little over 3 inches. So a little over 3 inches for the highest point of the headboard, and about 3 inches wide, about 3 1/4 inches wide. And this one is 2 1/4. These have to be the same width. So I used them as templates, so I'm just going to cut out these 2 pieces. I'm just using my scissors. I'm not worried too much about how the edges look, because I'm going to be covering that up anyway. You do want a flat edge on the bottom, so try to get that as flat as you can, the part that will sit on the floor. Okay, now I'm going to cut my bedboards, and for that I did measure. Alright, I had to pop in with an edit because I've lost the clip and have no idea where it went. The size of beds is completely up to you. The height of the headboard, the height of the footboard, totally up to you. And of course the length of the bed. But I will measure mine, of course, just in case you want to know. This one is just about 4 1/4 inches, and of course the width will be the same width as your headboard and footboard. This one's a little bit longer. This one is 5 inches. If you're doing a 1/12 scale, then every inch equals a foot. I don't follow a scale, I just eye everything up. But if you were following a scale, a 1/12 scale, then every inch equals a foot. Alright, and this one is 4 1/2 inches. Once your bedboard is cut out, then just use it as a template as well. Alright, next step is to glue these pieces together, and if you are using a commercial box like I did here, that food came in or coffee came in, you can see how glossy that is. Paint has a problem sticking to that, and also glue. So just give it a light sand Okay, I don't have to worry about that on these or the foam boards. They glue together nicely. And what I'm using is a syringe I bought off Amazon. I normally use a paintbrush because I buy bulk glue in great big jugs, so I can't really pour it, and it doesn't have a nice top, a pourable top on the top. So I normally use a paintbrush with glue. And then somebody commented when I was making my stairs on film one day, and I was having troubles getting glue into little spots, she said, get a syringe. And I didn't even know they existed for glue. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I glued it together, and I'm just standing it up on the tabletop to make sure that the bottom edges are even. I'm going to stick these under books, but I want to let the glue set just for a couple minutes. Otherwise, when you put books on top, it'll just slide. The pieces will slide apart. So give your glue a chance to set a little bit. Okay, just try your pieces. If they're sticking and they're not sliding, then you can stick some books on top. Okay, now my pieces are nice and dry. I let them sit for about 20 minutes. You can see my edges aren't very straight, or, you know, I didn't pay any attention to how they look, and that's totally fine because we're going to be covering that up, so don't worry about that. The next step we need to do is add our popsicle stick so our bedboard has something to sit on. Okay, and these are my mice beds, so I don't need them very tall. So I found one width of these is the perfect height for my mice. Okay, I'm just going to cut off that round end. And now I'm just going to measure. Okay, I want to make 2 pieces for each bed. So we need 2 popsicle sticks cut for each bed that you make. So when you glue these pieces on, these little popsicle sticks, just make sure that you put it down on the tabletop that you're working on, and you push it down so that it's flush with the tabletop. Like I said in the beginning, you don't want it wobbling. So you want to make sure that everything is flush. And now you want to leave the glue set for a few minutes before we move on to the next step. And do use wax paper or parchment paper because the glue could dribble out the bottom and get stuck to your table. So I'm just going to set those aside, and I'll just leave them for a few minutes before I move on to the next step, just so things aren't sliding around. So I'll give it about 3 or 4 minutes. And then we'll attach our bedboard. I'm going to get the glue right on top of that craft stick. Okay, so I'm going to use a block of wood here. I'm just going to lean that there. Okay, once your piece is set in place, I'm just going to add a little bit more glue. You can use a paintbrush, like I said. Alright, so the next thing I do, this looks so professionally, I just want to weigh down the top. So these are full bottles of paint. I just weigh it down. Make sure everything's straight up and down before you walk away. Like, you don't want it to dry with the bedboards pushed in or out or anything. Just make sure that they're straight up and down. Put your weights on top, and now you just leave it for about 20 minutes or so, maybe 30 minutes even. I would set a fan on it if you could as well, and that will help. You just want to make sure this is nice and dry before we move on to the next step. Okay, the pieces are dry. They are still a little bit flimsy. That's going to get better. Ooh, look at that one, eh? Okay, so what we're going to add now is this wood filler. And I just use my finger. And I'm going to fill in all the cracks with it. Okay, and as you're adding it, don't put too much pressure on the end boards as you're working. So I hang on to the middle usually when I'm working. And when I get here, just hang on to the part where it's attached. Just kind of hold it together while you're pushing. It's not going to fall apart on you if you just touch it or just push on it. But if you keep repeatedly putting this stuff on and working it into all the creases and stuff, you could cause it to get weak. You know what I mean? Like, so you want to just make sure that you're not putting too much pressure on these end boards as you're working. Okay, I set that aside to dry. I actually put the fans on it and let it dry some before I finish with the wood filler, because I was finding it too difficult to put keep the wood filler where I needed it to stay as I was working. Because it was wet, it was pulling out of the spots that I wanted to put on there. But now I can feel it's quite a bit more sturdy than it was, but it's going to get even more so after this part is done. And once this is dry, this wood filler in here, this board and this board here, the end boards, become like one solid piece. So that's what makes it feel like a wooden piece. I just love these little beds. I think they're so easy to make. I hope you think so too. I really do. I hope this, you know, helps you get your little house filled up with furniture. Alright, we're in the next day, and these sat all night and dried, and they're pretty sturdy now. Pretty good. What I did before I went to bed as well, and I do this with all my pieces that I glue together with tacky glue, when things are sitting for a while, or I leave them overnight, I always add another little layer of glue. You can use a paintbrush too. You don't need to use a syringe, like I said. It's just easier for me to get in those little cracks. And I do this on all parts that are joined together. And I did it in here as well. The tacky glue dries really strong, and you'll never be disappointed by adding a little bit of extra tacky glue. And I just leave those sit, let them dry, and then we can move on to the next step. So that's what I did with all my pieces. Look at these ones. I ran out of wood filler, so I went to the Walmart and got some last night, and it's purple. Never seen that before, but it dries white. So it went on purple and dried completely white. So now I'm going to take my sandpaper, and I'm just using what I had on hand. It doesn't have to be the same one. This is like a fine grit. Probably a little coarser grit would be better, but that's all I have. Anyway, I just sand down the edges, and any parts that are like this here, I would sand that down. When you get to this part, these parts here, make sure you sand those down, because that will show up in the paint. I've done one here so you can see. See that? That has to be sanded down. So you want to bring those right down to the cardboard. Alright, I've sanded down this bed here, and there was a few little areas that could use a little extra. So I'm going to do that now and let it dry. Alright, time for the paint. You can do this any color you want. I mean, this is where your creative process is going to take off. Like I said, I like that shabby look with the cracks in the paint, so I'm going to do a dark brown first over all my beds. Alright, so I normally put on about 4 coats of that brown. I just feel like that is the perfect number. It covers up everything I need to be covered. Any pictures underneath, like this is a coffee box, it will cover that. I just like the looks of the 4 coats. I'm just putting this on, like I said, so I can get that color underneath when I put the top coat on it. It gives me a nice color underneath that cracking. Now we don't need it on this part here. I was just a little bit carried away there. All I need the cracking for is the headboard and the footboard, and anywhere that's going to be seen. I don't need any on the bedboard. Alright guys, we're going to end the video here. The mattresses that I made, I did show that on video, and that will pop up on your screen at the end of this video. The painting part, like I said, is totally up to you. If you wanted to see somebody who knows exactly what they're doing with Crackle Medium, it's not me. I just kind of, you know, I did follow the instructions, and I put my Crackle Medium over top my 4 coats of brown paint, and then I added my paint over that. And I did get crackle and stuff, but this might not be exactly the look that you're looking for. There is a better way of doing Crackle Medium, and I know somebody here on YouTube that does a great job with that. Her name is Ara, and she has Bentley House Minis. I will put her link in the description box below. I highly suggest going to check her out if you like that aged look on your furniture. I'll put that link directly to her aged furniture video in the description box below. And yeah, she's got awesome videos. She does wonderful miniatures, so check her out for sure. And there will be a second part to this video, I'm just not sure when, and some of these might change color. I'm going to keep this color, I love this. This one is actually called Vintage, and it's a chalk paint. I know a lot of you will love that color as well. Okay, oh, and this chippy look here, I decided to just forget about the crackles, and I went with chippy instead, and I just used this little tool here, and I just scraped off the paint to expose the brown underneath. Yeah, so we'll just end it there, and I'll get this up for you guys, and hopefully that will be helpful, and you'll get yourselves some little beds made for your treehouse or your dollhouse. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you super soon.